When talking about the future of the Detroit Lions, it's impossible to overlook the impact that the 2025 NFL Draft will have on the team's trajectory. Every detail of the team's selections will be closely analyzed by fans, journalists, analysts, and even the players themselves. The pressure on Brad Holmes, the Lions' general manager, has never been higher. With the 28th overall pick in the draft, the team has a chance to further strengthen its roster and take a significant step toward a NFC title. The question hanging in the air is, what will Holmes do? What does he have in mind for the immediate future of the team, considering its many needs, but also the opportunities to find top-tier talent? Brad Holmes, with his unique and bold approach to the draft process, is not the type to play it safe. He's known for adopting strategies that aren't always popular among fans and analysts, but ultimately prove to be the right decisions over time. He loves getting the most value out of his picks, even when it involves a certain level of risk. His history with selections like Aiden Hutchinson and Jameson Williams exemplifies his style well. Hutchinson, one of the biggest defensive talents in the 2022 class, was a safer pick, but with enormous potential. On the other hand, Williams, a wide receiver with great talent but injury concerns, was a riskier pick. Holmes has shown he's not afraid to invest in potential, even when the situation presents some uncertainties. So, what can we expect from the 2025 draft? How will the 28th pick unfold? In terms of immediate needs, the Lions have several areas that need urgent attention, such as the secondary and defensive line. However, what makes Holmes' approach so intriguing is that he rarely makes a choice that seems obvious at first glance. He may very well decide that, instead of addressing a position of need, he'll go after the best available talent even if that talent comes with some concerns, like a history of injuries or a need for longer-term development. And this is where Shavon Revel Jr. comes into play, the cornerback from East Carolina who, after a promising start to his college career, saw it interrupted by a severe knee injury. What is known about Revel is that, before his injury, he was standing out on the field. In his early years of college, he showed great potential, with exceptional skills in covering receivers and a rare ability to read the game at such a young age. His stats, including 3 interceptions, 15 passes defended, and 50 tackles, speak to his value. But the big question mark hanging over his potential selection is the ACL tear, one of the most serious injuries for any player, and especially for a cornerback who relies so heavily on agility and explosiveness. This injury represents a huge concern for any team considering selecting Revel, including the Lions. His recovery will be long and full of uncertainties, and that's the dilemma Brad Holmes will have to resolve. What could convince Holmes to take a chance on Revel, despite the injury risk? The answer may lie in Holmes' broader approach to football. He doesn't limit himself to thinking about the present, but also looks at the long-term future of the franchise. Revel, even with the risks, has the potential to become an elite cornerback if he fully recovers. Holmes, who's shown he's unafraid of making bold moves, might see in this player a rare talent with characteristics that perfectly align with what he seeks for the Lions' defense: versatility, football IQ, and an aggressive mentality. Moreover, with the team's secondary still young and in need of depth, Revel could be a key piece for the future of the defense. On the other hand, choosing Revel also represents a significant risk, and this is where the biggest dilemma lies. Brad Holmes might decide that, instead of taking a higher-risk bet on Revel, the team should bolster the defense with a more experienced player, someone who can have an immediate impact. With players like Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw Jr. already standing out, the Lions might feel they have enough promising young players, and that adding a veteran with NFL experience could be the safer and more strategic pick. Signing an elite cornerback, like Carlton Davis III, for example, could add stability and leadership to the secondary, helping develop younger players while providing immediate impact. But if the Lions go this more conservative route, they could be passing up a golden opportunity to further strengthen their roster with a player who, if healthy, could become one of the best in his position. Furthermore, choosing a veteran would bring stability to the defense, but it wouldn't necessarily put the Lions in a position of dominance for the future. The rebuilding of Detroit's defense, to be successful, needs to be considered from a long-term perspective. Holmes understands this, and Revel's recovery could be a long-term project that, with time, will pay dividends. The key, however, will be the recovery time and the player's ability to adjust to the NFL level after such a severe injury. It's possible that Brad Holmes sees the 2025 draft not just as an opportunity to strengthen the team for the upcoming season, but also as a chance to build a team for the years to come. If Revel recovers well and reaches his potential, he could become an elite cornerback, maybe even one of the best in the league, and this would completely change the future of the Lions. Long-term vision is something Holmes has always had, and the opportunity to grab a player like Revel with that kind of potential could be a risky move, but one that also has the potential to be extremely rewarding. The 2025 draft is also a pivotal moment for the Lions in terms of roster development. After years of rebuilding, the team finally seems to be shaping up to be competitive. But there are still several pieces that need adjustment. The secondary, despite having some promising talent, still has gaps that could cost the team dearly in the future. What Brad Holmes needs to weigh is the balance between risk and the potential reward of his pick. The decision to select Revel could represent a paradigm shift for the Lions' defense, turning the secondary from a promising group into a truly dominant unit. Another factor in this decision is the importance of support from the coaching staff and the team's medical personnel. If the Lions choose to go with Revel, it will be crucial to ensure that his recovery is closely monitored and that he has all the support needed to get back to his best level of play. Recovering from an ACL injury, especially for a cornerback, is not just physical but mental as well. The player's confidence, speed, and explosiveness, which he had already demonstrated on the field, could be affected, and that needs to be taken into consideration in any decision made. Behind the scenes, Revel's recovery might be getting more attention than anything else right now. The Lions have a top-tier medical staff and a training infrastructure capable of handling such recoveries. However, if Revel's recovery is slower or less efficient than expected, the Lions might be forced to reconsider their selection, given that the pressure for immediate results will always be present. Moreover, the 2025 draft isn't just about one pick. The Lions will still have other selections to explore during the process. If Holmes feels the risk with Revel is too high, he might opt to focus on other areas, like the defensive line, which also needs more depth and quality. There are other players in the draft who can contribute immediately and significantly to the team, and those options need to be evaluated as well. For General Manager Brad Holmes, this is a make-or-break draft. He has a reputation for making bold, often unconventional decisions that have paid off. But with heightened expectations surrounding this pick, the pressure is on to get it right. One of the biggest storylines surrounding the 2025 draft is whether the Lions will prioritize immediate needs, such as the defensive secondary, or take a longer-term approach by drafting a player with enormous upside but significant risk, like Shavon Revel Jr. Revel's story is compelling. Before his knee injury, he was considered one of the most promising cornerbacks in college football. His ability to read the game and lock down receivers was remarkable, and his potential was sky-high. However, his torn ACL raises legitimate concerns about his ability to recover fully. This draft represents a unique opportunity for the Lions to either secure a key player for immediate help or take a calculated risk on a player like Revel, whose ceiling could elevate the franchise in the long term. The choice will shape the defense for years to come. Brad Holmes is known for his ability to spot untapped potential, while some of his picks have been polarizing, such as Jameson Williams, who came with injury questions. They have also shown his ability to bet on higher-risk, higher-reward prospects. Revel could very well fit that mold. If Holmes decides to select Revel, it would not just be about adding a talented player to the roster, but about taking a long-term gamble on a potential game-changer who could be part of the Lions' defense for the next decade. The question is whether the Lions, after years of rebuilding, can afford to take such a risk. The franchise has spent years focusing on player development and has already made significant strides. But the team is still in the midst of retooling its defense. The Lions' secondary has been a point of concern for some time. While players like Jeff Okudah and Kirby Joseph have shown flashes of brilliance, there is still a need for depth and elite talent. Revel could be that difference maker if he recovers fully from his injury. Another factor to consider is how the Lions would approach the recovery process for a player like Revel. The team's medical staff and their ability to support his rehabilitation will be crucial in ensuring that the young cornerback reaches his full potential. The recovery process from an ACL injury is notoriously challenging, especially for a position that demands agility and speed like cornerback. Revel's ability to regain his quickness and explosiveness will be the defining factor in whether or not this pick becomes a success. Brad Holmes has shown that he isn't afraid to take a calculated risk when it comes to drafting talent. However, with the weight of expectations and the team's current trajectory, the decision to draft a player with such a major injury history might not be as easy as it seems. Another consideration is whether the Lions would be better off targeting a more established player in the draft, such as a cornerback who has proven his ability at the college level and could contribute right away. Players like Terrion Arnold or Enos Rakestraw Jr. are names to watch as well. If Holmes opts for a safer pick, he could go for a cornerback who provides more immediate stability to the secondary. This would add much-needed depth while allowing the Lions to develop their younger cornerbacks like Arnold and Rakestraw. The Lions are at a crossroads, and every decision made this offseason will have long-term implications. They can't afford to make another misstep in their rebuilding process, but they also need to be aggressive in securing top talent to reach the next level. A veteran presence in the secondary could also be a smart move. Signing a player like Carlton Davis III, a proven cornerback, could bring leadership and stability. to a young secondary while allowing the younger players to develop under a more experienced mentor. However, acquiring a veteran cornerback wouldn't necessarily solve all of the Lions' defensive problems. A player like Davis could improve the unit in the short term, but the Lions would still be missing out on the opportunity to build for the future with a potential superstar like Revel. The 2025 draft could be viewed as the Lions' last chance to really solidify the future of the defense with a player who could become a cornerstone. This makes the decision on Revel especially crucial. Do they take the chance or play it safe? There's also the question of team chemistry. With a secondary that is still young and developing, adding someone like Revel could inject the group with excitement and energy, possibly creating a sense of unity among the players as they work toward future success. If Brad Holmes decides to go with Revel, it would be a statement that the Lions are not only looking to win now, but also building for the future. They are willing to take risks to ensure that the defense becomes a dominant force for years to come. But the risk of selecting Revel isn't just about his recovery, it's also about his adjustment to the NFL level. Cornerbacks who come out of college with great potential often face a steep learning curve when it comes to the speed and complexity of the professional game. It would be a bold move to draft Revel, but it could pay off in spades if he regains his form. Holmes' ability to assess talent and his willingness to trust in a player's potential has been one of his defining characteristics as a GM. The Lions are no longer in full rebuild mode. They are on the brink of becoming a true contender. In the 2025 draft will be critical in determining whether or not they can take that final step toward NFC supremacy. The team's success in the 2025 season will rely heavily on Brad Holmes' decisions in this draft. With several areas of need, it's not just about finding good players, but about finding players who can elevate the Lions in the short and long term. If Holmes selects Revel, it could be the type of move that defines the Lions' defensive identity for the next decade. However, there are many moving parts, and the decision will ultimately come down to how comfortable Holmes feels with the risk involved. If the Lions choose a safer option, they could bolster the defense and potentially make a run for the playoffs in the near future. But the reality is that a safe pick won't necessarily get them to the top of the NFC, and they may need to take risks to compete with the league's elite teams. What makes this draft even more fascinating is the uncertainty surrounding Revel's recovery. If he is able to return to his pre-injury form, the Lions could have one of the most dangerous cornerbacks in the NFL. If not, they could be left with a higher-risk, higher-reward pick that doesn't pay off. There's no easy answer for Brad Holmes, and the 2025 draft will test his decision-making abilities like never before. The pressure to get it right is immense, but Holmes has a track record of turning seemingly risky moves into success stories. However, there's something special about the 2025 draft for the Lions. They're in a transitional phase, where building the team needs to balance the search for immediate talent with long-term planning. Brad Holmes, more than ever, has the chance to make a choice that could define the next decade of the Lions. This type of decision isn't something that can be rushed. If the Lions go with Revel, it will be a move based on confidence and raw talent, rather than immediate readiness for the NFL. However, if they choose a more ready player, they could be creating a solid foundation for the present, while leaving the future a bit more uncertain. Whatever the choice is, it will reflect directly on the franchise's mentality and its ambitions for the years to come. What's interesting in this whole process is that, regardless of the path chosen, the Lions have a chance to shape their future. They're no longer a team in rebuild mode, but rather a franchise on the rise. Whether with Revel or another player, the 2025 draft pick will be a key moment for the team's future. The expectations are high, and all eyes are on Brad Holmes to see what his next bold move will be. It's possible that the Lions, with the 28th pick, will take a chance and select Revel, or perhaps opt for a safer choice. What we know for sure is that whatever decision is made will have a lasting impact. The possibilities are many, and the 2025 draft promises to be one of the most exciting in the franchise's recent history. As always, expectations are high, and the Lions' future looks increasingly promising. Time will tell which direction Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions will take, but one thing is certain: whichever choice is made, it will have deep consequences for the team. If you enjoyed this video and want more content like this, follow our channel, Lions News Fan Report. Don't miss the hottest updates on the Lions' future and everything coming up in the NFL. Stay tuned for more exclusive analyses.